about, but we'll get stuck into it right away with a look at what's going on in the papers this morning. This is Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. Let's get it on. So, Benedict Spence, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
You know, you're very casual today. I don't think that's a bad thing, but you normally wear a tie. Did you choose not to wear a tie today?
I do. I think it was the weather this weekend. We had quite nice weather, and I sort of entered a slightly more relaxed phase.
We all broke out the shorts, didn't we?
And now it's raining.
And now you can put them away again.
Yeah, feel a bit silly, frankly. Two months down.
Exactly. It was fantastic, wasn't it, though? Funnily enough, I was talking to one of the sort of bosses here yesterday, and he was saying that an awful lot of people came into work yesterday in a really bad mood because they'd had such a nice weekend. The weather was so brilliant, and they woke up on Monday morning and it was kind of sort of glum and dull.
That's a good thing, though. Actually, it grounds you. You have those few days of sun, and then you remember, we live in Britain.
And also, you want to go back to work. I don't want to work when it's beautiful outside.
Exactly.
You know, you'd rather. But it did get quite nice yesterday afternoon.
It did. It did. You know, I don't think that all this global warming is such a bad thing. You know,
no.
If we're going to turn into sort of a slightly more Mediterranean sort of temperate country.
Right.
I'm all.
But of course, if you talk to the net zero crazies, they will say, "Oh yes, but it's not just about it getting warmer. It's about it getting wetter. It's about things melting and glaciers fading away."
Warmer and wetter means better crop harvests. Yes. Presumably, it means you know, slightly more kinds of varieties that we get. I don't see that this is a bad thing.
Well, Rishi Sunak might be in support of that because he's come out and said basically, or he wants to say, I think today, his big speech. Yesterday's big speech was, "We're all going to die. It's going to be horrible. Everything's going to be terrible. We're entering a very dangerous era." Today he's going, grow more fruit.
Yeah. Again, that's because the weather dropped yesterday. Suddenly got very depressed.
But I mean, you do wonder. I was saying to James Max, you know, have the sort of the advisors shaken the tree of policy and gone, we're out. We've got nothing left. Go and do vegetables and fruit.
Yeah,
go and do fruit and
allotments for the nation.
It's weird, isn't it?
I think it's because he was on Clarkson's farm. Actually, I think that's what this is. And to be fair, I've been watching Clarkson's farm. It's quite
Everybody
good fun.
has.
Yeah, it's good fun, and it makes you feel very bad for farmers. So suddenly I'm sort of sat there going, do you know what? Actually, yes, this is a good thing. Actually,
it is.
Yeah, help out British farmers. You know, eat more domestically grown produce. Everybody goes on and on about the cost of living crisis, how your money doesn't go so far. Well, that can only be a more expensive thing because actually British farmers don't get the subsidies that their EU competitors do. But actually, if we are talking about a cost of living crisis, it affects farmers just as much as it affects everybody else.
Well, one of the things that affects the farmers more, and particularly actually any business more than we know, is the cost of energy. Because, you know, we all moan about the fact that, you know, your energy's costing 3 times as much as it used to, even though it's supposed to have gone back down. For farmers and for people who pay, I mean, I remember talking to Lance Foreman, you know, the fish man who runs the fish business, and he was saying that his electricity bill went from something like £100,000 a year to £300,000 a year. And you're talking proper money then.
It is, and they are the ones that feel the pinch first. And everybody else, I think, increasingly, this is a sign actually of sort of how well off this country is relatively. Actually, that there is still this perception that you should be able to get food very, very dirt cheap. Supermarkets sort of dictate these prices to the farmers. They don't really get to negotiate or haggle like most countries do. It's not actually a very fair system, if we're being completely honest. And I think we have been sort of lulled into the sense that actually food is always going to be cheap and plentiful, and it's not really like that. So I do think that there is a lot to be said about trying to buy British. It's not some sort of weird xenophobic thing. It needs to have a Union Jack label.
Oh, yeah, but if you're a Remainer, of course, that makes you a bigot. Though,
it does.
Why do you want a Union Jack on your eggs?
I goose step to Tesco and I only get the stuff that's got a flag on it. You know, it's not about that. It's about other people who also pay taxes in this country, also share this country, making sure they get paid a decent wage as well. And I don't think that's an unfair thing. I'm prepared to pay a little bit more because I can afford to. I understand not everybody can, but why is that a bad thing?
Also, do you actually know, I mean, you know, whenever you go into a supermarket, unless there is a Union Jack on something, I mean, in terms of fruit, if you're buying fruit and vegetables, you don't know where it's from, generally speaking, unless you actually pick it up and examine it, do you?
I tend to assume if it's a pineapple, it's probably not British. I don't buy a lot of that, to be honest.
I don't buy many pineapples. I mean, but if you're picking up some chilies or something like that, some green finger chilies, and you pick them up and you're not that surprised to find that they've been made in Malaysia or somewhere like that.
No,
because they're probably not made in Kent. And if you buy some apples, particularly now if you go in and you have to buy them loose, which I hate, by the way, because you have to then sort of juggle them to the till, and there's never a bag, and you have to price them yourselves and all that. But you don't know where they're from.
No,
they could be French, they could be Spanish. I mean, I've no idea.
Very often they come from Morocco because that's very nice weather, a lot more there. But do you know what? Again, if the temperatures temperatures are going to rise, it does actually mean that we'll have different growing seasons.
Yeah.
Some things will suffer as a result of that, but it will also mean you have a greater variety of things that once upon a time you had to import from halfway across the world.
Well, maybe Rishi Sunak's onto something. We've actually spent 5 minutes talking about fruit and vegetables.
I think so.
Extraordinary.
Actually, this has been a party political podcast.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Hi, British. Don't be ashamed. Meanwhile, over in Northern Ireland, a judge there has played an absolute blinder by making it very, very possible for everybody who's here from overseas illegally to just pop over to Northern Ireland, where you will definitely not be sent to Rwanda.
Yeah, because they've said that this is in breach of the Illegal Migration Act.
Yes.
It undermines people's human rights, and so that this Rishi Sunak's stop the boats, small boats policy cannot apply in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
I've got to be honest, I'm not particularly sad about that, because it still means that people are going to be going over.
Well, this is it. I mean, as I say, and also the word that they used was quite interesting. I can't remember what it was. It reminded me of the Coldplay guy's divorce, uncoupling.
Oh,
They've
yes.
sort of uncoupled from Britain on this, haven't
Conscious
they?
uncoupling.
Conscious uncoupling.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. We
Disapply, is that what they did? They disapplied it.
And we had this, of course, a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, when the Republic of Ireland turned around and said, oh, well, there's lots of migrants coming here now because they've been put off by the Rwanda deal, and everybody else was going, no, you're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to say that it's working.
Also, we're not taking them back. Thank you.
Yes. So, I mean, the problem is, of course, most people who do end up going to Northern Ireland or the Republic of Ireland will realise actually it's not what they quite envisaged it was going to be. It's not a brilliant place to be. There aren't many jobs, and actually I think the people are a lot more hostile broadly there, because their culture isn't told, they don't have it sort of rammed down their throats that Irish culture is a fundamentally bad thing. There's a little bit more resistance to the idea of multiculturalism.
Yes.
And we've seen that with protests across the Republic recently, and I imagine you'd probably see, given the history of Northern Ireland, to the idea of people encroaching on them.
And there are still some quite interesting organisations still active in Northern Ireland. I was reminded of that just the other week when a guy was found nailed to a fence. Yeah. And you go, that wouldn't happen in many places, but it would happen in Northern Ireland.
A certain attitude when it comes to people who break the law, which I'm not saying I endorse, but it's an interesting attitude.
It is. A very interesting place. The big story this morning seems to be, for most of the papers, this weight loss jab, which seemingly has now taken on sort of, miraculous proportions. It's now being said to not only help you lose weight, but it can also stop you having heart attacks, and it can be possibly rolled out to prevent everything from cancer to liver disease. I mean, I don't know what they're doing in the medical world, but they seem to be putting an awful lot of, faith into something that hasn't really been tested very much.
From what I remember reading, this is, of course, a Ozempic, but it's also known as Wegovy and semaglutide as well. Right. It is one of those things, because it's an appetite suppressant, actually. It is very good at getting people to lose weight by effectively just eating less.
You just apparently you don't want to eat. I mean, I know people who have taken it, and it's been suggested to me that I should try it, and I'm going, I don't really fancy it though. I don't really trust it, and I don't really want to walk around feeling nauseous the whole time and not wanting to eat.
Maybe this is a bit unfair of me. I tend to look at that as a sort of a reflection on your character.
Yeah.
You can't actually, if you don't want to lose weight so badly that you can't do it yourself, and you have to take a substance to do that, I don't think that's a very good reflection on you. It still says you're prepared to gorge yourself and you can't be trusted, and you need a drug to stop that. That's not great, is it?
It's the sort of ultimate, I would say, surrender to narcissism, isn't it? It's like, well, I can't do it myself, I'll get something to do it for me.
I mean, it's also, I suppose, ultimate sort of nanny state. Well, here you go, here's a problem. Oh, doctor, what am I going to do? I've been advertised to so much. It's so difficult to eat. So, okay, here you go. Here's your Ozempic, and now you're going to be on that sort of semi-permanently
for the rest of the time
at the taxpayer's expense.
At the taxpayer's expense, and that's the other thing. This is a study that's been done by Professor John Deanfield, University College London. And they're kind of now starting to use it, and you'll recognise this because I think you agree with me on this, as this sort of nanny statism where they're saying, well, if we've got all these people who are supposedly unfit to work because they're obese, well, here's the cure. Here's the sinecure. We can just give everybody this, and they'll all be happy as Larry, and they'll get on the train, and they'll go to work, and they'll do their jobs, and they'll be fit and healthy, and they won't die of heart disease. Well, it doesn't really work like that, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Human life does not work like that.
And the other thing is there are going to be side effects. There's a lot of, this hasn't been picked up upon very much in this story in the Times, but actually it's quite well known that it does affect things like your digestive system, which you would imagine it would if suddenly you go from eating a regular amount to just effectively sort of semi-starving yourself. It does have an impact on your digestive system. We don't know what the long-term impact is going to be, but I'm prepared to bet that there will be some.
There will be, and again, they haven't seen yet what the long-term impact is because it hasn't been around for long enough. What we have seen, though, is some celebrities over in America who have lost so much weight, and I know Sharon Osbourne has admitted to this, that actually they now feel as if they're too thin.
Well, I was going to say, I've seen a few of those sort of celebrities, it's not actually a very good look.
No.
If you go from looking healthy, but in your mind you think you're overweight and your doctor's telling you're overweight, to looking gaunt.
Gaunt and sort of haggard,
Yeah, it ages you. And I just sort of think, actually, is that worth it?
And
It's
also there's a
living
sort
long
of
and
pallor
jolly
to
life.
the skin as well, because, you know, you can't take drugs and assume that they have no effect on you other than the one that you wanted to have.
Well, by definition, if your appetite is suppressed, you're not eating so much, you're not getting as many nutrients as you used to. So it is going to affect your body in some negative ways.
Exactly.
As I say, I just don't think medicating these things, drugging people, is the solution to everything. But obviously, you know, I'm not a doctor.
And there
so
have
who
been,
am I to say?
and there have been things written before about how some of the side effects include things like you get very bad breath with this stuff, or you lose your sex drive, you know, and all kinds of other, you know.
What's the point in getting slim?
Exactly. Well, that's a very good, because most people are going to take it to make themselves more attractive to the opposite sex, and then they won't want to eat
and
or
be
have
revolting.
sex.
Gaunt, no sex,
bad breath.
Yeah.
Goodness
Sounds like
gracious
a
me.
wonderful idea.
It really does, doesn't it?